The way the Clean Air Act was written, it had a provision in it that it only allowed E10, which is what we're all using today, to be sold year round. It's an outdated regulation. It just needs to be changed, and it needs changed in a legislative fix. And that's what is currently happening. We're trying to get done in the federal government right now. It's just to allow E15 to be treated just like E10, so that consumers in Toledo and also across the country really will have access year round to unleaded 88, which is how it's marketed at the retail station.
You have 8 states, including Ohio, that are permitted to sell it year-round. Could you explain why Ohio and certain other states here in the Midwest get that exemption as it currently stands?
So it's really not an exemption for us. It was a request. There's really two pathways forward. Nobody really wants an 8-state to have access, the rest not. We'd really like a federal fix, and that's what's happening right now in D.C. is our effort to have a federal fix to E15 year-round, and that's what the Attorney General signed on to a letter to support that national initiative.
What are the benefits of E15 gasoline to the average corn farmer out there? Explain to us the process and why the Ohio Corn and Wheat Farmers Association is so invested in this and how this benefits our corn farmers here in Northwest Ohio.
Well, farmers benefit because it's all about corn demand. So the more ethanol that we're able to use, the more corn is used up, and that is really the only way that we can help improve profitability on the farms. The issue is we have a lot of corn that just doesn't have a home. And so we have about a 1.5 billion bushel carryover, and that's corn that just doesn't have a home. In order to use some of that up, we can increase the availability of E15 year round, which you mentioned it's available here. It's only available because the president signed an emergency waiver last season. We're waiting on that this time as well. And so we just don't know yet whether or not we're going to have access to E15 year round. That's why we don't need a year by year wondering if this is going to happen. We need a federal fix, and it just makes a lot of common sense. And I think it's going to get done hopefully this year.
What are the economic benefits to Ohio and to Ohio's farmers if this does end up happening, if there is a year-long availability for this across the country? Would consumers feel the impacts of higher prices on corn if there is a higher demand? I'm just thinking basic supply and demand, basic economics. If there's more demand for corn.
Is it all? In fact, there's only a benefit to consumers, because and that would be they would have greater access to a lower priced fuel. Unleaded 88 is just naturally lower cost, usually about 10 to 30 cents in Ohio right now. And you could see that. I mean, in Toledo, I think you have a new 6 or 8 sheet stations. That's one of the retailers that's chosen to go ahead and offer this. But there's lots more that'll come in if we can get this federal fix. There's a lot more retailers that would like to offer that to consumers at a lower cost. That's when consumers win.
Right, and there's a new Sheetz right down the street from our station here, and we hear from drivers who have called us. I've taken some of the calls. Said, what is this? Can I use it? Is it safe in my car? What myths do you hear about unleaded 88, about E15 gasoline? What are the most common ones that you hear out there, and debunk some of those for us?
Well, we do know that people wonder if it's safe for the car, and the answer is yes, if it's approved for all 2001 and newer vehicles. That's about 96-97% of all the vehicles on the road. So if your vehicle is manufactured since 2001, you are fine to use this. It is lower cost. It's safe. You don't receive any mileage difference. Don't believe me. Check it yourself. It's pretty easy to do. And the biggest difference is it just costs less. So it's a cleaner burning, lower cost, made right here in Ohio, used right here in Ohio. It's a pretty good story.
The opponents to this come from where, and what are their arguments against having this available year-round? If there are so many benefits, what are the pushbacks to this, the opposing arguments are, and you say what to those opponents?
Well, you know, this is the great thing about it. This is a very bipartisan issue. No politics involved here. The petroleum industry has agreed with us. API is with us on wanting a year-round fix for E15 year-round. There's really nothing negative about this. I mean, there's only positives that can happen for agriculture and consumers. And it doesn't cost, this is a regulatory fix, so it doesn't cost the taxpayer anything to pass this federal legislation.
Are you optimistic that this gets across the finish line, and how does it do that? Is it through a standalone bill? Does it get included in the farm bill, for example, that we hear a lot of talk about around here? What are the paths to the finish line for this?
Well, multiple. And so, number one, not a standalone. I don't know, not much gets passed as a standalone in
Sure.
DC. And I know a lot of people don't like these big omnibus bills that have lots of stuff in them, but it's the way things are done. And this one, having a no cost, is a safe thing for the lawmakers to put in an omnibus bill. Anything that must pass, the continuing resolution being debated right now, going to be passed probably tomorrow night, is the first possible way that it could do it. Beyond that, there are several other things that may happen this year that are must-pass pieces of legislation, and we're figuring out ways that we can insert this into each one of those to have multiple paths to success.
So Attorney General Dave Yost signs on with other attorneys general from some of our neighboring states, from others in the country, asking Congress, urging Congress to adopt this legislation. The significance of that is what?
Well, we so appreciate any vocal support by any of our elected officials, and we've got a lot of it. I mean, David Taylor, congressman in Ohio, Max Miller, all are co-sponsors of this piece of legislation. Lots of verbal support from many other members. But the AG signed on to a letter with a group of 15 other attorney generals across the country. And that show of support means a lot to Ohio's farmers, and we just wanted to thank him for that.
So several different avenues here that we could see taken to try and get this legislation passed at the federal level to allow E15 to be sold year-round nationwide. You can get it right now in Ohio if you can find it, because it is allowed to be sold here because of that waiver that he talked about that was granted last year. Just don't want to be in limbo is what he says. So that is Tad Nicholson, the Executive Director of the Ohio Corn and Wheat Growers Association, talking about the push to try and increase and expand E15 gasoline's availability across the country. We're talking about this tonight on Action News at 5. In about 15 minutes, it's Action News at 4 with Tina and Tony and the rest of the gang with all of your news headlines from this day. I'm Josh Krupp. Thank you for watching Action News Now.